First is 43.5.
I'm gonna start this off right. I'm gonna just be nice to you. I'm on the button. I ain't gonna make it hard for you.
Action fully around. Walking one time.
I'm gonna be nice.
Welcome back, everyone, from that little break. This is the final table of the HPT main event at Ameristar Vicksburg. We are down to 3. We just lost PJ. PJ Jafari, Syed Jafari, finished in 4th place for 13,000. He got it all in as a small favorite with a king high against a queen high, but Ryan hit one of his 2 cards, made a pair, and that was good enough to beat the smaller pair that PJ had made. So everyone now guaranteed at least 18,000 or just under that, and it's about 27,000 for second and 43.5 for first. So everyone playing for a pay jump of 9,000 and then a pay jump of 16,000 after that. So I mean, as you can see, like the last pay jump is almost as much as the min cash, so to speak, of the next person out. So it really is about trying to win, but also trying to at least move up to second. So you got to balance those desires. Chip counts are about 2.6 million for Ryan, 1.7 for Jay, and 1.3, 1.4 for Tom. Or it'll actually be it'll be 1.4 for Tom because he got a walk. 40, 80,000, 10,000 Annie. And just a little open call from the small blind with Tom. Then all checks till the turn here when Tom made a bet. And king, that could change things, certainly. Could make someone a bigger pair, could make someone a straight. All right, 175, about half the pot. Good bet sizing here, whether he's got it or whether he's bluffing. And if he wins this pot, he'll move into second. Tom will, that is. Jay does not look like he intends to fold. I'm not sure if he's calling, getting ready to raise, or if he's just getting ready to call. It's definitely a raise.
Raise to 375,000.
So just over a min raise, 200,000 more. Yeah.
Tom says call.
Tom quickly calls, and
Jay shows king 7 for 2 pair kings and 7s. Tom shows queen 7 for 2 pair
ooh.
kings and 7s. And Jay's gonna win the pot with higher 2 pair kings and 7s.
Tom gets super lucky on the flop to outflop a king 7. I mean, Jay has him dominated pre-flop. Tom has Jay dominated on the flop, and then Jay hits the perfect river card, because if it had come 7 on the river, they might have played an even bigger pot, and Jay would have been very unhappy with that result. So that's going to be a fairly big hit for Tom. It's going to put him definitely below a million. It's going to put him down to like 800, 850,000. And that's going to move Jay up probably to over 2 million, like 2.2. And not that far now behind Ryan. Now, if I'm Ryan, I'm figuring I'm going to get to the heads-up play pretty often. It's not going to be that often I'm going to get knocked out third. And I probably want Jay more than I want Tom, because Tom is a lot stickier. He's a lot less likely to make a big fold, a hero fold, anything like that, it seems to me, than Jay would. And it's just so hard, when you're heads up and you're playing almost every hand, it's just so hard to make a good hand that you'd rather have an opponent who folds too often than an opponent who calls too often. And Tom open shoving here for just about 10 big blinds, so I agree. If he's going to play, I like the shove. Ryan doesn't like it. He's got one of those hands where he's like, man, I wish if you had just raised less. It's amazing how often you find yourself in that spot. You're just like, man, if you had raised less, if you were all in for a little less, I would happily call. If you had gone all in for a little more, I would happily fold. Or if this hand was a little weaker, I would happily fold. Or if it was a little stronger, I would happily call. But now I'm right in the middle ground of everything. Like, you never like that. You just feel like both decisions are probably wrong. So, my name's Greg Fusselman Raymer. Hope you've enjoyed the commentary here. We wanted it to be a live stream, but it will be, if you're watching it, then right now you are presumably on YouTube watching this. You can follow me on Twitter at Fossilman, Fossilman. You can also check out my website, fossilmanpoker.com, though the content there has been fairly static for a long time, so not much there unless you want to buy some of my signature glasses or, contact me about private lessons or something like that. I do private lessons, I do group seminars, things like that. You can also buy autographed fossils and so forth. And Ryan opens shoves because Tom's sitting there in the big blind with only like 10, 11 blinds, maybe 12. So again, if he's going to play, I like open shoving. Or I'd say if he's going to raise, certainly there'd be hands where I might like limping. And, there might be some hands, given who the opponent is, that you would do a lesser raise. Like you'd make it 2 or 3 times a big blind, something like that. But as a basic strategy, ignoring who the opponent is for a minute, I like just either fold or shove in that scenario. It's going to be my preferred play. Now here open shoving would not be good because you have got Jay in the big blind who's got way more than 10 or 12 blinds in his stack. So if you're going to play this hand, you want to just do your normal raise. You make it 160, 170. I think Jay's going to be fairly sensitive here to the idea of like, I don't really want to risk all my chips here when Tom has become, somewhat of a short stack. So I think he might be inclined to fold hands that maybe I would recommend not get folded. So I like raising here with a pretty wide range if I'm Ryan. But Jay looks like he is getting ready to 3-bet, not fold or call.
He's going to re-raise to a total bet up. $530,000 is the total re-raise amount by Jay. 530. That's exactly right.
I think he can make it smaller than that and it'll work just as well. Like he could have made it 450. It doesn't seem like a big difference. You're like, it's one big blind less. What's the big deal? I'm like, it's not a big deal, but at least some of the times you should be 3-betting here with a hand that if Ryan goes all in, you're going to fold. And therefore, like, why not lose less in those scenarios? And if you're not going to fold when he goes all in, I think he's just as likely, in other words, I don't think it's like he's more or less likely to shove because you made it 450 instead of 530. And I don't think, he's more likely to call, really, because you made it 450 instead of 530. So I don't think you're changing the math much in terms of the frequency with which you get played bet by Ryan. But you do lose less on those, handful of scenarios where you're going to 3-bet fold. But it could be that Jay doesn't have any hands in his range that he's going to 3-bet and fold, which would also be a mistake. But the kind of hands that I would 3-bet fold with would be hands that are, they're playable in case the opponent calls me, so suited connectors and stuff. But what I don't want to 3-bet fold are like, pretty good hands like an, ace jack, ace 10, king queen, pair of sevens, pair of eights, hands like that. I don't want to 3-bet those if I'm going to fold them, because then I'm turning them into bluffs. Because Ryan probably doesn't have a lot of hands that he's going to just call the 3-bet with. He's probably going to fold or shove most of his hands. And so if I take a hand like ace-10, I 3-bet. If I'm going to fold when he shoves, then I've essentially turned that hand into a bluff. Now, I might as well have had deuce-7, because deuce-7 would have the same result most of the time. Because I don't think there's a lot of hands right now where Ryan can call that 3-bet from Jay. So Jay open limped the small, Ryan raised 200 more. Jay getting ready to 3-bet again. And it looks like he's putting together what looks like almost like a min re-raise. I'll be both surprised and impressed if I see a min re-raise here, a min 3-bet. But now it looks like a fold. Well, a 3-bet would not have worked. And if you're going to show cards, again, that's if you're going to show it all, it's perfectly fine to say, you know what, why mess around with it? Just don't ever show your hand. That certainly should be your starting point. But if you ever are going to show cards, do it like that. Hey, here's a spot where you're suspicious. You think I might be running you over. Well, let's show you that I'm not. And then maybe next time I am trying to run you over, and I might get away with it a little more often, because you're remembering that, oh, yeah, he raised in a spot like this and had the ace-king. So they know you don't, you make them feel better about their fold, and so now they might feel better about folding next time. So let's see if we're going to get a shove or a fold here, which is kind of what I expect. One or the other from Ryan, since that's what he's done before, and Tom has now got that much less chips in his stack. Nope, just a call.
All in. Another 3-seat action back. Ryan. Tom is all in.
That's 650,000 more or something like that. It's too big to call to gamble. You gotta actually think that you might have the best hand at least 20, 30, 40% of the time here, really, to call. If you're sure you're behind every single time you call, you're not getting the right price. You can't call here. It's different once you're getting 2-to-1 or better on the call. Now you can feel like I'm always beat, but I'm still getting the right price, and maybe I should call. But 100% possible that both players played that hand well. There's definitely some hands in this range that Ryan should do that with, where he would just limp in. I want to see a flop here. I got 7-5 off suit. I got enough value with this hand that, I'm getting 3.5, 4-to-1 here to just call you. I hate to just fold it, but I don't want to shove, because now if you call me, now I've just put 10, 11 bets in the pot with a hand that's, never in good shape. So especially if I think you're going to check a lot of hands, then you can call from the small blind. If you think your opponent's going to check a lot of his hands, then you can call with hands like that in the small blind. Well, here he's open limping the button. I'm not sure I don't think I'm suggesting that, really. Especially, when you're the chip leader here. Jay is getting close to you, but you're still the chip leader. You raise, it's on Tom. He's thinking, do I really want to play a marginal hand? Maybe if I fold, maybe Jay and Ryan get it all in, and, I can move up to second place by just sitting out. But once Tom folds, Jay's got to be thinking, do I really want to play a marginal hand here, where if it goes bad, I get busted by Ryan, and then I'm third, instead of just waiting and letting Tom get busted first. So I'm not a fan of the limp there on the button by Ryan. I think any hand worth playing is worth raising, since he's the button. It's a little different when he was the small blind last time. I mean, he's not far ahead of Jay.
And Ryan's going to bet out 150,000. 150 is the bet by Ryan. Action's back to Tom.
I think he can bet smaller and get away with it. So I like betting here with anything. No matter what he has, I like the bet. Like these guys just called and checked pre-flop. They checked you on the flop. It's a good chance they just don't have anything. So there was a pretty good chance they were going to fold no matter what. You know, now it's completely different. You know, now if you're Ryan and you just don't have anything, you know, like what do you want to do? Much tougher decision now. That's a wet card. I mean, lots of different straight draws got there. Someone who had one pair now might have two. You know, like if Ryan has been trapping pre-flop with like a big pair, you know, aces, kings, something like that, you know, then that's not really a card I'm pleased to see on the turn. That's definitely a card that could have beat me or motivate my opponent to stick around.
Jay's going to make the call, 250,000 and a call.
So you likely put Jay on a pair here, maybe even a 9, but more likely a 7 or a 4, and he just doesn't really believe Ryan. Wow, that's almost the wettest card. Only like the 5 of hearts would be, like 5 of hearts, 8 of hearts. Those are the only like wetter cards than that. You know, an 8, you know, especially a heart. I mean, there's just no telling. Either of these guys could have an 8 in their hand, and they've made the straight. Definitely the possibility for both players. It's in their range. Anyone could have 2 pair or trips, or, you know, Jay almost has to have something. Ryan could still just be on air. Ryan could just be sitting here with like King 10 offsuit. You know,
8-9 for the straight.
8-9. He flopped top pair and made the straight.
Jay showed 6-3 for the bottom end of the straight. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Jay had 6-3. I'm really surprised Ryan called on the flop was 6-3. That's really surprising to me that he didn't fold on the flop. And that's part of why he should have, is that, you know, it's like, yeah, I've got some equity here. I got a gut shot straight draw, and heck, this guy could be betting nothing, so maybe a 3 or a 6 giving me a pair is good. But, you know, yeah, those things are possible, but it's also possible that he limped with a big hand. And if he didn't limp with a big hand, then it's possible that he hit that flop and has you in bad shape. So, you know, I'm not a fan of the flop call by Jay at all. I think he should have just gotten away from it there. And I still don't like Ryan just calling on the button pre-flop, but, you know, hey, that's the thing. It's like, you know, even if I'm right, that's the funny thing about poker. He got rewarded on this occasion for that mistake. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, you know, his call was good for other reasons. But that really puts Ryan in great shape. I mean, it's 800,000 or less over there for Tom. It's, you know, 1,000,003 or 4 for Jay. And all the rest. You know, that's like 3.5 to 4 million there for Ryan there. So we got another limped pot here pre-flop. Jay called from the small, and Ryan checked, and now Ryan's going to min bet. Jay is calling, and there might just definitely be some tilt going on with Jay. He might be pissed about how that last hand went. It's kind of like, man, you know, even if I was dumb to call on the flop, it's like, you know, why did I have to pair the turn and then make the straight on the river? You know, the losing end of the straight on the river. Like, why did those cards have to come?
river card.
Well, you never know. That could be a bluff by Ryan that he's giving up on. It could be a strong hand where he's now decided, like, okay, I mean, the best way for me to get full value is to show weakness on the turn. If it was a draw, he missed.
Checks over to Ryan.
Jay checks again. So, I mean, Jay, has a hand with showdown value, but probably not anything that strong. Might have paired the 9 or the jack. Or he has a flush draw that he isn't bluffing with.
Ryan's going to check as well.
Ryan feels like Ryan has nothing, is just giving up.
Plays the board king high.
Yeah, I was right.
For Jay, and he's going to
He's
win
playing the board, he said, so he has nothing. And Jay had said king high. I didn't see what the other card is, though. I'm curious. Was it king high with something like king 8 with a draw? Like king and 2. Oh, king of hearts, 3 of spades. Again, like, I don't like, I mean, limping in is like, yeah, okay, that's not horrible. Limping in or raising pre-flop are both acceptable. But, like, how do you check call with just king high on the queen jack? I mean, you gave the guy a free flop. He could have any of those. For him to call that flop, it really, he shouldn't be doing that unless he just has a great read. Like, I can tell when this guy's bluffing and when he isn't, or at least I'm right, way more than half the time in terms of guessing when he's bluffing and when he isn't. So, I'm sure Ryan's upset because he's just like, man, I goes, why didn't I bet the river? He's like, I could have bet the river and represented the 7, and
280,000 is the raise by Jay. 280.
So a pretty big raise here, opening for over 3 times. I might like this raise, though, by him, because it's a lot bigger than I normally suggest. But it's kind of like, I don't want to just go all in, because that's too much. But I want to make it big enough so that Tom knows that he cannot bet me off my hand. So in other words, I made it 280. Oh, pocket kings, yeah. I don't like that. That's like, it's a big enough raise to like really deter action. I mean, showing the hand's okay. Like, you're going to get credit now in the future, but not a big fan. That one, Craig, was, Jay was the button, and he opened for 280, like 3.5 big blinds, and then had pocket kings after they both folded. And I just didn't like that. They need to unmute you for us. Like your head.
They unmuted me?
They've muted you again. I can't hear you, only because you're in the room. But we'll get Craig's input. He's back now. He had an extended break. But I don't like it, because I mean, it's like, I like that play if I have a pretty good hand where I'm kind of like, I'm not gonna fold when Tom shoves, but I would be perfectly happy for Tom not to shove. I think you're back now.
I'm back.
Yep, now your mic's on.
I had people to talk to in the hall.
All right, 3 players. Let's see the flop.
People aren't here to hear me anyway. They're here to hear the fossil man, so they're okay.
Well, and your bookies definitely are not interested in what I have to say. Yeah, I'm sure they were here collecting, right?
No sports betting for me.
That's right. You live in Chicago.
That's
like,
right.
You can't bet on those teams, right?
Hell no, it's illegal.
That's not what I meant.
No, I don't do sports betting.
Well, I don't really pay any attention to sports, but
Yeah.
it's funny how many people bet sports and they think like I know what I'm doing, and it's like, dude,
Yeah.
if you don't treat it like a full-time job, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's like, just because you like enjoy watching the games on the weekend doesn't mean you know enough about
Yeah.
NFL or MLB or NBA to like bet it and be a winner. Not when you have to pay 11 to 10 to the bookies. I mean, if it wasn't 11 to 10, if you want to just bet with your buddies, now you might.
And 5s with a jack. 3-way chop pot.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
That was like a friend of mine. It was funny when I had my first job in Chicago at a law firm. And he was from Notre Dame, and he loves college football. And so, huge college football fan. And he followed everything. And he really wasn't a guy who gambled or bet. But he knew what all the lines were,
Yeah.
just because he followed it so closely for all the teams. And then he knew, like, what school everyone else at the firm, all the other lawyers went to. So he would be like chatting with people, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday about that weekend's games and stuff. And then he would get them going on about like, oh, like they went to Wisconsin. And he'd be like, oh, yeah, but Wisconsin's like a 4-point underdog, against whoever, against Iowa this weekend. And they'd be like, that's BS, man. Our team's going to be so good that they should be 10-point favorites. And he'd get them to end up betting him, $50, $100, where instead of him giving them 4 points, they're giving him 4 points.
Oh wow, that's funny.
So I mean, he would talk these guys into these bets week after week after. I mean,
He would win.
He'd win overall because
Yeah.
he's like, it's just kind of like, whatever. Even if you think the lines are wrong, he'd be getting people to make bets with him where they're like 6 to 10 points on the wrong side of it.
Sure.
So the lines are probably almost never that wrong, where anyone's a favorite with the bet. And he was just a favorite in every single bet he made, but he would just get their ego involved.
Yeah.
For their alma mater and how,
105,000.
it's like 3 points, we're going to beat them by 20 points. And he'd be like, well, I doubt that. And he's like, you going to put your money behind that statement? And, well, I'm not going to give you 20 points, but they'd be giving him 10 instead of 3, So he'd like, okay, well. Oh, wait, I'm telling stories and we got a big all in.
Oh no, Ryan's behind. Thomas is up ace king to ace 9 or ace 10. I couldn't see for sure, but
Well, we're going to see here in a second when they show us the overhead. But so I think we did Ryan.
All right,
Oh, Thomas shoved.
all in 3.3.
All right, Thomas just raised. I missed the action.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
guys.
right. That's right.
It was my fault telling stories that had nothing to do with the play at the table.
Tom's tournament life is at risk here.
But now both of us are sitting forward watching eagerly. So ace king and ace 8. So yeah, Tom's way ahead with ace king.
Deuce of spades. Jack of clubs, 3 of diamonds. Tom is still in the lead with this ace king.
Well, even if he loses this pot, Ryan's still the chip leader.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, there's a good card for him. There's a chop and a 5 for a chop. And 8 for the win. Every other card, Thomas doubles up.
It's gonna be a 9. I can feel it.
River card.
You heard it. What did Craig say?
Oh, I was a little off.
Oh, Craig, you suck. Haha. You're not psychic.
Yeah, he's back from the brink again.
Yeah. So,
Look out for this guy. I'm
a
telling you.
1,000,005 or so for him, and as soon as we get an eyeball on these other stacks, we'll give you estimates of where they're at.
1.5 million. How many chips are in play? We had 200
5.6.
players. Yeah, 5.6. So he's almost got 20-some percent.
725,000.
Yeah.
All in amount by Tom. 725,000.
Yeah, you missed some hands where Jay kind of like tilted it off or called it off in silly fashion.
Yep.
Because you can see like he's down there to like he's also at like 1.6.
Yep.
So 1.5, 1.6, and then that's still like 2.5 for Ryan. So his lead is diminished tremendously, but he's still got a nice solid lead on these guys.
See if anybody gets impatient, but these guys don't seem like they will get impatient, so they're just going to keep playing the game the way they think they should.
And again, if you're playing in your tournament at home and it's early in the tournament, the table's full, 9-10 handed, you might think like, why are you getting it all in with ace 8? Like that seems pretty bad.
Yeah.
But this is 3-handed, so completely different. I mean, you might as well say ace 8 is as good as at least ace queen, in comparison. In relative strength. I mean, you only got 2 opponents that might wake up with a better ace instead of having 8 or 9 opponents. So they're like 4 times less likely to be able to, find the better hand.
Right makes the call option.
So there is that big difference. And now, like I said before, it's like you do 2 divided by 3, that's, 66%. Let's cut that down. You should be playing like 60% of your starting hands.
You would think.
Give or
Yeah.
take. I mean, that should be about your long-term average, is at least, probably about 60% of your hands. And, you might be short-stacked and you might be playing less than that. You might be the middle stack with a super short stack and you're playing less than that. But then when you're the chip leader, you might be playing 80 or 90% of your hands. So
True.
long-term average overall, 60%, you know, something like that. And so ace 8, like out of all the 60% of best hands, like ace 8 is way up there. You know, whereas when we were full table and you were playing 15%, you know, now ace 8 isn't very good.
1,000 is the bet by Tom. Back to Ryan.
Ryan, that's one thing Ryan will do is he will pay you off. He will not believe that you've got that ace. I mean, I've noticed that. It's one thing I noticed about him. And to his credit, I mean, you can't be worried about. Now he's less worried that Tom's got an ace.
Yep.
Way to go, dealer. Way to go.
And Tom's going, now I know he's less worried that I've got an
Quickly
ace.
checks behind, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a bad play to do that when you have
No.
the ace or not.
No, true.
With the king.
Partnership dealer.
Sevens, aces and sevens, too higher pair for Ryan. And Ryan's going with the pot.
So he was sticky and it worked out.
Yep.
And again, we're three-handed.
Too good for me.
Just because the guy raises, he doesn't mean he's going to have the hand.
It only works if I ask for it.
Or having a hand doesn't mean as much.
True.
I mean, someone raises with ace 4 offsuit at a full table, and when you see his hands at his cards at showdown, you're not thinking like, oh, he had it.
Yeah.
Here, you're like, oh, well, he had an ace. He had it. You know, like, yeah, he had an ace. Of course he raised pre-flop. He had an ace. You know, and there's only 3 of us.
I'll tell you see so many times though players out there that don't play all the time. They just automatically give the initial aggressor credit for having that top card paired on the board. It's just, you know, you got no chance if you play like that.
Well, maybe actually the strongest thing about your game is that you really don't have any fear. And, you know, so whether you're right or wrong, I don't see you making decisions because, like, I'm afraid I'm beat, or, you know, I'm afraid I'm going to fold a winner, or any of those motivations. You don't do that. And that's something that a lot of players need to learn, because especially the weak players out there, a lot of them, most of their decisions are guided by fear.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we've always said like one of the worst styles of play is to be the calling station. And the reason people play as calling stations is I'm afraid to fold because I'm afraid I'm going to fold what is the best hand or is going to become the best hand. Mm-hmm. So I'm afraid of folding when I could have won. But I'm also afraid to get more chips in the pot because I'm afraid I'm going to lose more. So I don't want to bet and raise with the same hand. So it's both of those fears. It's the fear of losing and the fear of folding what would have won. And so they just decide that calling is the safest play.
Yeah.
And of course, you and I know that, like, no, calling is usually the worst of the 3 choices.
That's a big thing for me. I usually don't believe the other player, and I'll make bets, I'll make raises, I'll make calls to make them think that, you know, I've got them beat. I make them prove it to me over and over again sometimes before I'll get out of the hand.
That's it.
You know, I mean, if you think a guy is just bluffing, then that's the only time you really should be calling.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to induce more bluffs. Like, I beat all the bluffs, and I think you're bluffing, but if I bet a raise, you're going to immediately get away from it. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to, like, make you play perfect in that scenario.
Right.
But if you are just calling with decent hands, and it's not because you think this guy's bluffing right now, but, like, I'm just not sure whether he has it or not, then you're probably wrong. You're probably supposed to have folded or raised.
You're right.
Wait, what was that?
You're right. You're right. This one time. This one time.
This one time, thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
What are the antes going? What's going up to? 75 and 150 after this?
Oh, no.
What are they at?
It's 40-80.
Oh shit! Okay, 51.
40-80, it'll be 50-100 after this, so. But still, I mean, you know, at 50-100, there's 56 blinds. That's less than 20 blinds each.
Yeah.
And with,
I'm all in.
you know, when you're under 20 blinds, it's just so easy to get it all in pre-flop, let alone three-handed.
There he is, all in pre-flop.
Yeah, and I like that. If he's going to play the hand, I like.
Yeah.
He has less than 10 blinds.
650.
Yeah, he said 650, and if it ain't, it's really close. Or his stacks off. Oh, there are 20s. Yes, so he does have 650, or really, really close to it.
Tom is all in for 655,000. That's the total bet by Tom.
Yeah, so
Only
I
bet
mean,
655,000.
it's 8 blinds.
Still on
If he's gonna play here on the button, I think he's gotta do exactly that.
Tom's got 9 lives. He's shown that today, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and he can easily have. I mean, the thing is, you don't want to get in the habit of doing something like I'm going to shove my 8 or 10 blinds when I have a decent hand, but not great.
Sure.
Tom shows Queen of Clubs, 10 of Spades. Jay shows Ace of Clubs, King of Hearts.
Wow.
Yeah, but what you wouldn't want to do in Tom's spot is like do something else when you have like aces or kings.
Yeah.
You know, because now if your opponents learn that about you, you've capped your range. We call it like you've cut off that top bit of your range.
Sure.
So it makes it a lot easier to make like loose calls against you because we know that like, oh well, I'm not going to run into aces or kings or queens, so. And Tom behind, but not horribly behind. Well, he is now that he missed 3 times. But
He's got the only spade, though.
I mean, you know, Queen 10, he still had 35% equity or more pre-flop.
Here we go. Kings against spades.
9 out. I mean, 7 outs here. There's 4 nines and 3 aces.
And a flush draw with his 10 of Spades.
Red and low.
Oh yeah, on the flush. Wow, yeah.
Red and low, Jarrett.
Or spade, or he's going to leave us in 3rd place.
Don't do it, Jarrett. Red and low.
Let's see the river card.
Got tons of outs.
River card is the 10 of hearts. It does pair Tom, but
Not enough.
Jay
man.
has
Down to
paired
2.
Tom. Tom
turn.
is in 3rd place.
I like that shove though. I mean, you got 8 blinds and Queen 10. I mean, we were talking that before. The unexploitable shove is a term that gets used, where he shoves that Queen 10. He could turn his hand face up, and if his opponents now play perfectly against him, he still ends up making money.
Yep.
And he just ran into a better hand and one that was never going to fold.
What we're going to do is
So,
we're going to square
oh
up
well.
for heads up play. So if you guys want to take a quick 5-minute break while we square up for heads up play.
Oh, man.
Almost tied, heads up, but I got to give the edge to Ryan. Actually, a pretty big edge here. Because I just think he's going to know how to play all the marginal hands and heads up poker.
Yeah, I would agree.
You know, more so than Jay. I don't think Jay necessarily has much experience.
No.
At this time, I don't know how much experience he has, but I got to feel Ryan's got more.
If you want to take a quick 5
Well,
So we
you know,
will see.
as far as experience, yes, I would agree. As far as who knows what's coming out on those cards, what's going to hit the board, who knows?
And
Okay, now I'm curious here. I'll go to the laptop here, go to Hendon Mob, see what we can find on these guys.
Jay doesn't have, I think he's under 100,000 lifetime, and Ryan's higher because he won the Kansas City event back in the spring.
when they set up, you're going to get some pictures of that table. All the money's going to be out there. Bracelet, everything.
They'll let me down there from
Jay
there?
Figueroa.
Yeah, after they set it up.
Okay. My
It's probably not him.
dad.
It's
No.
Like, come unglued.
Vegas. We'll flip to the other ones.
How many chips you have?
There's my paper on the ground.
I don't know. I have no idea.
All right.
I think I got less, but